Hi, in this video, we're going to be discussing about cinematography. I don't know where to start or how to start this topic. So I thought of setting up this camera for a video shoot and explain each settings and go on from there. And I'm not going to explain all the basic settings. I'll be explaining the settings which are not discussed in most of the cinematography videos. So now let's set up this camera for a video shoot. And in this video, I'm going to be using the Sony A7 III, which is the popular camera for video right now. Okay, let's start by setting up this camera. Once you've done the basic things like setting up the date, time, and formatting it to NTSC, then change the dial to movie mode and select the manual exposure. And everything in cinematography is manual. There is no auto in cinematography. So select the manual exposure. And people say that Sony's menu system is not that good. Because this is a professional camera, they gave you so many options. But once you understand the Sony's menu system, it is very easy to set up this camera. And the first thing you have to understand in the menu system is the icons. The icon you see here, right? Like a photo of two little mountains. This represents that these settings will only affect the photos. The settings with the film reel icon will affect the video settings, and the ones with no icon will affect both. And in this video, we are not going to touch the ones with the photo icons. So for us, the first one is the general settings, is the APS-C mode. So when and how to use this APS-C mode? And everybody knows that it gives you 1.5x zoom with the same lens. That everybody knows. But there is one more advantage to this APS-C mode. It actually reduces your minimum focusing distance. Let's take this audio recorder for example. And I want to shoot the audio levels in this audio recorder. But I want a tighter shot here too. Okay. So my minimum focusing distance is approximately 1 feet. I can go any closer than that. And you can crop the image to 1.5 times. It will become very soft. And if you increase the sharpness, it will almost become unusable. So here the APS-C comes in. You will have a tighter shot even with the minimum focusing distance. It basically reduces the minimum focusing distance of your lens. So this is another advantage of this APS-C mode. So that's the only thing that can affect the video in page 1. Tab 1, page 1. The next one is lens compensation, page 2. And we will discuss this when we discuss about lenses. That will be a separate video. So we will discuss this in that video. And there is nothing to change in third page too. And fourth page, this we will discuss it in another video because this too is a huge topic. And focus. And as I said before, there is no auto in cinematography. So change it to manual focus. And nothing to change here. Nothing to change here. Nothing to change here too. Nothing to change here too. Okay. Change the ISO to manual. Nothing other than that, nothing to change here. And the 12th page is the white balance. So how to set the white balance? Like manual focus, there is no auto white balance in cinematography. You have to set the temperature. So select that option and go to the icon with a K and select it. It will be in 5500K. Now let's see why and how to change the white balance. Let's take 3 scenarios. Okay? These two guys have also set the temperature at 5500K. But both of them have tungsten lights and they can't change the temperature in their lights. But this guy likes this look. He wanted this look. That's why he bought tungsten lights. So now there is no need to change the temperature. But this guy doesn't want this look. He wanted a natural look. But he can't change the temperature in his light. He can't change the temperature in his lights. So now we have to set the white balance to get the natural look. So the recommended one is using a gray card. And if you don't have that, use a white balance card. And if you don't have that too, try to dial down the temperature manually in the menu. But somehow you have to set the white balance as close as possible. because most of these cameras will be shooting in 8-bit or 10-bit. Even 10-bit needs the white balance to be set before. Because only if you shoot raw, you can set the white balance in post. And I will come up with another video about white balance and color correction. But for now, we will see how to set it in A7 III. So now press the white balance and jump up. Don't go down, jump up and select the set button. Then point the circle at the center to the center of the gray card and press the middle button. Now it will show you the current white balance and the white balance reading and ask you where to store the red white balance. Select anyone and press the middle button again. This will give you a natural look to your video. And speaking of looks, the next one is the picture profile. So what is a picture profile? The picture profile is basically like the preset you use in a camera, like the landscape mode or night mode. But if you don't want any looks like that, and if you have a look in your mind which you want to do it in post, then you have to shoot it in a flat profile. And this is where the picture profile comes in. This picture profile is also a preset, which doesn't have any preset values. And it gives you a flat image so that you can add or remove colors as you wish. And the main thing in the picture profile is the log gamma. This log gamma helps you in adjusting the colors or details in your highlights and shadows. It's not about shadows and highlights, but the colors and details in the shadows and highlights. This is a huge topic, so I will come up with another video for this too. But for now, think of it like how you shoot HDR photos by taking 3 different exposures. But in video, you can't do that. It will need a lot of processing power. So what the camera does is, it changes the actual values logarithmically so that you can have more dynamic range, which in turn gives you more control over the highlights and shadow details in the video so that you can have the looks you wanted. So the log gamma I use often is Cine 2 and Cine 4. Why? Because it starts at ISO 200. But Dslr 3 is the best gamma. But the only problem with it is it starts at ISO 800. And this is not good for outdoor shoots during the day. But if you're going to do an intense color grade, go for the Dslr 3. But for most color grading, Cine 2 is more than enough. Okay, the next one is focus magnifier. If you have an external monitor, use that to pull focus. But if you don't have an external monitor, then use this method to pull focus. Because this is the easy way to pull focus accurately. Why? Let's see the next option for that. The peaking settings. Peaking is reliable but not accurate. And if you're shooting in a flat profile, then this peaking is not that good at that. For example, my focus is here. But if I move my hand, it shows that it's not in focus. But if I introduce a sharp object or object with fine edges, then it will say that it's in focus. But it's not really in focus. So this is not an accurate way to pull focus. So this is where the focus magnifier comes in. So I have mapped this to the C1 button. And I can explain the customization of these Sony cameras because they have so many customization options. So whenever I want to pull focus, I will press this C1 button and it will magnify the image so that I can pull focus accurately. And the next one is exposure. And we have changed it in the beginning. Now, next one is the file format or the codec. In A7 III, XAVCS is the highest possible codec. So select that. And if you're using a different camera and if it has a better codec like ProRes or ProRes RAW, then go for it. The file size may look scary, but it will be easy to edit than the compressed codec. And next one is the frame rate. Okay, so 24 frames is the standard. It's the standard for almost 90 years. And I'm not going to narrate the whole history of it, but 24 frames is the standard. But you can change the frame rate if you want to. But for that, you have to understand the 2 things that are related to frame rate. And those are the shutter speed and motion blur. So everybody knows what shutter speed is. If you increase the shutter speed, you will have a crisp image. But what about the motion blur? So what is motion blur? Motion blur basically helps your brain in perceiving the motion easily. Or in other words, fluidic motion. But before we go into motion blur, let's talk about motion lines. So let's see an example. So this is the motion line. Without this, it's hard to understand the motion in this video or in this picture. But This is for a hand-drawn picture. So the principle is same in both motion lines and motion blur. In this picture, the motion line and motion blur are mixed so that you can understand it better. Let's take another example. Let's take my idol Johnny Bravo. Here it has motion lines, but in this frame you can see they created the motion blur by manipulating the image. That's the same here too. My man Johnny doesn't have that kind of face. They did this to achieve the motion blur. So without motion blur in videos, it will look like a series of pictures taken in a very short interval. But with motion blur, it will feel like a video. So now that we know motion blur and shutter speed, let's start with 24 frames. So 24 frames for a very long time commonly denoted something that has happened, whereas anything above that will have a natural or lively look. Say 60 frames per second. It will feel like a more lively image or image with less motion blur, like watching a live cricket or a football match. Those are shot at very high shutter speeds, so that there will be minimum motion blur. But let's take the frame rates less than 24 frames per second. I was watching this behind the scenes of Fast and Furious. There I noted this. This clip is shot at 24 frames per second and at a shutter angle of 90 degrees. That is 24 frames shot at 1/90th of a second. There is one more extreme example, Saving Private Ryan. But this one is shot at 12 frames per second with 45-degree shutter angle. But they induce this motion blur by applying a shaker or a vibrator motor to the camera. So you can change the frame rate of your camera if you understand the connection between the frame rate, the shutter speed and the motion blur. So select whichever the frame rate you want, 24 or 30 or 60 or 120. But keep in mind, if you go to higher frame rates, the camera will still record it in 100 MBs per second. And 120 at 1080p, if you put it in a 4K timeline, it will be a little soft and will have very less data in it, which is hard to color correct because every frame in the 4K timeline will have 4 Mbps. But this 120 frames at 1080p will have just 8086 kbs per frame. So it's really hard to color correct and it looks soft in a 4K timeline. So keep that in mind before shooting 120 frames per second. Next one is SNQ. And this SNQ has a maximum file size of 60 Mbps per second. So it will have very less file size, so the quality won't be there. But if you want to check the slow motion shots and how it looks, then reverse it with this mode, but shoot it in normal mode. Because in normal mode, it shoots at 100 Mbps per second file size. And next one is proxy. If you enable this, it will make a 720 copy of your shot. And there are two advantages to recording proxy. The first one everybody knows, you can use it in edit. That is the main reason. And there is one more advantage to recording proxy. You can have a rough cut on your location using this 720p file. You can edit it in a laptop or even in a mobile phone to check the continuity, or you can have a rough look or even create a rough cut in location using, there are so many softwares available like Adobe Brush. You can use it to create a rough cut on location. Okay. The next one is audio recording level. This we will see it in an episode dedicated to audio. And enable this one. You can press the shutter button to stop recording. This will be helpful if you are shooting with the electronic viewfinder. And the next one is steady shot. Keep it on because large shakes are easy to stabilize and edit. It will give you a smooth motion. But if you have a sharp jitter or a sharp shake, those are very tough to stabilize. So keep it on. And if you have a mechanical lens that has no communication with your camera, then select this option and select the focal length manually. And I have tried increasing the focal length for say a 50mm camera. I increased the focal length to 85mm manually, but that didn't give me appropriate stabilization. It was not appropriate. It was jumping here and there. So better select the same focal length as your lens. Okay, the next one is zebra. This is important if you are shooting in a flat profile and if you don't have a monitor. This zebra shows which areas are overexposed. Use this only if you don't have a monitor. If you have a monitor, use the false color or histogram and turn this off. If you're not using a monitor, put it in 90 or 85. This is where I put my zebras. But you can check your subject's exposure by adjusting it to 70 or 65 and see how much your subject is lit. Okay, the next one is HDMI settings. This we will see it in the next video. Okay, now we are done with the settings if you're shooting internally. But the thing is, half of what this display shows are lies. And what are those lies? That we will see it in the next video. See you in the next video. Bye.